Alex here. I want to talk to you now about the 10 biggest mistakes I found over clients and even in my own company recruiting salespeople. And although that sounds negative, these are 10 things to avoid, which are pitfalls to fall into that you need to make sure you're doing when recruiting salespeople. Now, the first one that we find it as a recruitment agent. The first thing that comes into us, if somebody rings out of the blue in and they want to recruit, the absolute key thing for us is where are they located? Because recruitment is, if they're in central London, for example, in the UK, then there's like 10 million people within the M25. There's a big trawl market to actually find people there. If they're in a small village that somebody's never heard of in Somerset or Yorkshire or somewhere, and there's not a big city around, it's very difficult to recruit. And I find people, they ring up and they've found this cheap office in this small town which happens to be near where they live, and they want these people that have got to have experience in this industry and must have so many years experience doing this, that and the other. And you look it up and you think, well, within half an hour of the office, there's a very thin amount of people with that experience, and most of them are in jobs that they're happy with. Recruitment nightmare. Then they go ahead and want to negotiate prices, and we're really thinking, do we want it? And if we do, we really need a premium to do the job properly. So the first one you need to think of is the location of the office. Now, a central city is obviously helpful for a big pool of people, but that's usually, but not necessarily incurring a lot of expenses. Not all cities are the same expense. If you can move to a cheaper city, that's fine. But there's other locations where there are salespeople about, which are not necessarily cities, but there's a lot of salespeople there. And you need to have some, really, your recruitment agent should be telling you this for where you're considering. I mean, we even have a whole website for opening offices in southern Spain where there's a lot of salespeople available, and like offices at a tenth the price of even the remote places in England. So think very seriously when you're opening an office from the recruitment point of view. How difficult would it be to recruit the sales staff or any other staff for that matter that you need? Very important. Now, the next big mistake that we find is the next three are all about paying too much money. And the first one is by recruiting people that are too senior for what you need. You need really energy. In sales, we all know energy, motivation, a natural sales talent, the people person, somebody who's really money hungry and wants to get on. Now, quite often, they're not the people who have got more experience. The more experienced ones can be the ones that bring the culture of their other company, making them higher risk rather than lower. They also want these higher basics and all these things that mean they don't have to take lots of risk normally, and they quite often don't fit into your current team that you've now promoted somebody over. So bringing in senior people with experience, and the argument is that, oh, I need somebody to hit the floor running, therefore they must have experience in our industry. Now, I have found in every industry I've sales recruited for, which includes the recruitment industry, digital agencies, renewable energy, all sorts of car rental, all sorts of industries we've recruited for. You can train the sales skills, the USPs, the benefits, etc., and the specific products quite quickly, and do so. So paying over the odds for somebody with over the top experience don't necessarily not do it, but think really twice. But I would always have the policy of recruit from the bottom of your team and promote up, because that makes team management and leadership far easier. So don't pay too much money by wanting people with, you've been in your industry and you think you have to have a lot of knowledge about it. I've had people in our industry in recruitment. I've had people in specifics like accountancy recruitment, and they'll only take people with accountancy recruitment backgrounds. Even recruitment wouldn't be relevant to them. And it's absolute crap, frankly, because you can train somebody you don't have to be an accountant to be an accountancy recruiter. I can train somebody in an hour all the jargon and initials and so forth that is required in that. But they don't get hung up on your own ego and the whole value of that experience in that sector. It's the sales skill that's important, and the sales potential and the money hungry and the drive. So don't pay too senior, and don't pay too high a price in there. The other thing that next, still on paying too much money, is paying recruitment agencies for a really shoddy service. Now, there's a bit, frankly, of a con, and it's come over from 40 years ago, called contingency recruitment, whereas you recruit somebody and you pay a percentage, 15-20% of their starting salary, and that sounds great. Now, actually, they're not going to recruit for you. What they're going to do is introduce. They usually put adverts on job boards, trawl in a lot of people and just blitz those CVs over to you. You do all the recruitment, you do the processing, the filtering, the interviewing, and then they give you an invoice for the recruitment that you've just done. Now, that introduction fee should be charged at £75, £100. That's what an introduction cost. So if you want to do that, and that's all you're wanting from a recruitment agency, somebody sending CVs, buy adverts. Now, you can pay over the top for adverts in the wrong media, but you can go to a media buyer and buy them in bulk at 50 and a go. Now, you'll get you'll pay 10% of retail for that. So it's not that expensive if you're going to recruit even 2 or 3 times in a year to buy a bulk of them and then use them. And ask the job boards or whoever advice on when to place the adverts and the content of the advert, because that's also important. But if you're using a recruitment agency, get them to do more than just send a CV to you. You really do want their services. You want them to pre-filter these people and set them up. And you also want a third party negotiating at the end of the day and doing it. But make them work for their money. It's too many companies are throwing money away on that and not demanding it. The contingency sounds very attractive because you don't have to pay sometimes until the person has started, although that's drifting out now because so many recruitment agencies have found they never get paid that most of them are asking for some upfront money now. We only take upfront money from clients. We don't do that service. But if you want that service, make sure they're giving a full service for it. And not just emailing you a CV and you have to do all the work and arranging an interview, which is not that great. Okay, so you can pay for 2 senior people. You can also pay too high for people at the beginning. Now, I've always promoted you should really be recruiting at the bottom of your sales team, at the new entrant, at the trainee junior level, and still people take too much money in the first 2 or 3 months before somebody's proven themselves. So whatever your package is or normal in your industry or company, have in the first 3 months a probation period, and I've promoted this elsewhere, have a fixed and variable basic. So the variable is dependent on some very mundane and average even performance, but you're protecting the company until this person proves themselves. Don't pay lots of basics and people drop out after 2 months and you've got nothing back from them. So don't pay them too high at the beginning. The good trainees, incidentally, are not looking for high basic. They're looking for long-term potential. Don't tempt them with a high basic. That's not actually, we've found, what they may look for. There's other things they value far more, like training and long-term leadership, those types of things. So don't make the mistake of thinking or competing with other companies by offering higher basics. It doesn't work. It's not actually what the good people want. Next in the mistakes is when you do advertise yourselves, when companies do it themselves, DIY, they don't really get the fundamentals of advertising. All you need to do is ring the job board, manager, and ask them what are the key times, the key ways to ask them to check your adverts for you. Look at adverts that are already successful. There are better times of the week to actually be publishing adverts. The weekends tend to be quite weak, and there's times in the day that tend to be better to release those adverts, which are not always right. You also need multiple adverts with different job titles and put your location away, because people put in keywords and come up with different things. So if you've got a position that says junior sales ambassador, well, that's a great title, but nobody's going to put a keyword in ambassador. They'll put in junior sales, trainee sales, sales starter, sales apprentice. Use some of the wording they might use in multiple adverts. You still need to put keywords in the advert so that it's picked up and gets sought after. But do bear in mind you need a filtering process, because there's a lot of people just click apply to everything on the internet. So you can get loads of applications, but they're not really the people you're looking for. Next mistake, and it's one many argue with, no contract. We have found there's 3 types of people applying for jobs in terms of a contract. There are those that just won't consider you a kosher company, reliable, professional, reputable, unless you offer an employment contract. They also, when they go home to their dads or mums or whatever, brothers or friends, if they say there's no contract, they'll immediately have doubts on your company. Then there's a second type of person that actually feels intimidated by a contract if you give it to them. There's usually something awry with them when they think like that. And there's a third type of person that isn't fussed either way. They're a bit more, more senior salespeople are a bit more arrogant, that they think, I'm going to make lots of sales. You keeping me on board is your problem, not mine. So my security is my great performance that's going to happen, not a written piece of legal document. But a contract makes you look very professional. And bearing in mind, it's your solicitor that's written the contract, your management team, for your company. So it protects you against anything. Certainly if you have self-employed roles, you need that absolutely crystal clear in the contract to cover yourself for any eventuality. So even if you have a probation period, which we recommend for 3 months for the right sales job, there should even be a temporary contract, not temporary, but a trainee contract, induction, probation contract, just for the 3 months, which lets out the terms that everybody's crystal clear of. So you've got full record that you made everything quite clear how things go. So get a contract sorted. With that, we always recommend that when you're interviewing, have a bit of a brochure or something on the job, on the career, not just referring to your website, something specific that you give to people. It looks so good, and they will show it to their parents, brothers, sisters, friends, colleagues, whatever, and that would be the impression and the feedback you get. Because I found quite often a lot of salespeople drop out because of the negative influence, not in the work, but from the people around them at home. And as soon as they do well, that negative influence grows rather than goes down, because they become jealous. So to guard against that, have a clear brochure, a job description, what we're doing. Incidentally, with the advertising, we found years ago with research that when we actually added a job description after somebody applied to a job, 3-4 pages, quite comprehensive, the turn-up rate for interview went dramatically up. It's really valued, so you should have that in there as well. Next on the mistakes is sales managers don't seem to totally grasp the idea of setting people up for success right at interview. At interview, you're processing to see if you want them or not, but you actually need to be setting them up for an attitude on day one. Making difficult interviews, it makes them value your company more and come with a better attitude. And there's all sorts of values and so forth that you will actually go to, like a zero tolerance on being late. You can imply that right at interview level and get rid of the sort of people who would be late, that doesn't work with your company. Make it absolutely crystal clear at interview, but set them up for success. Talk about what they can achieve in the long term, the short term, the medium term, what the goals are, what the potential is, what the career path is. Get them really excited and get them raring to go on day one. Not, I'll give it a try. If anyone's got it, I'll give it a try, see what happens. It's not going to work. You've got to give 100%, as you well know. Okay. Next big mistake, which we changed dramatically 10 years ago in our market and grew our business, was processing applicants one at a time. That can be so consuming when most of them are so totally and utterly wrong. And if you invite them, for phone calls in your office all day, or you invite them in for interview and they just, before they've sat down, they're not going to fit in, and you still have to go through the whole process. So we recommend using us, frankly, but if you want to do it yourself, one of the tricks is to interview them all at the same time in a small group, have role plays in the group, handouts they fill in. So if you're talking about the company, do it to half a dozen people plus at the same time. Get some leverage in there and try and deflect phone calls in inquiring about the job with a job description sent out. So try to discourage those phone calls. Okay, the next one is offering too quickly. It's so easy to offer somebody in the job in the excitement of the moment, but then all sales managers I've ever met don't like firing people, and they delay. So to avoid that situation where you've got to man up or woman up and just do it, be really careful who you offer in the first place. Be really sure they're going to fit into your team. Make sure they pass all of your tests. So have a scientific system, not gut feeling. Gut feeling is great and useful, but you need that as well. But you need a scientific process of what you go through before they can be offered a job. And finally, which I've already sort of covered it in a way, is the culture fit of your team is very important. So when you're actually offering people, focus not just on do you think they can sell and you think they're money hungry and all the rest of it, but will they fit in with your current people and gel? Because there's a real synergy in a team, the 2 + 2 = 5 effect, of if everybody gels and reacts, they work well, they cooperate, they compete as well, and it really booms up and makes things happen. So, okay, great. Recruit, and recruit through us is your first choice, but if you have to do it alone, there's 10 things that you should definitely avoid. Paying too much money and taking on the wrong people. So I wish you every success and talk to you soon.